All right, and we are live for the first time in over 3 months. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris. Welcome to my first live show since I was banned in 3 months ago, over 3 months ago. And this is my channel, Bar911970. Thank you for anyone that takes the time to listen to this, whether it's live or whenever. I appreciate it. And let me first put this on, because I'm sure probably people are going to be surprised to see a live show. It's been that long. But I want to talk about this newer movement that I've been seeing. And as you could see by the image on the screen, or at least by the title at this point, the hashtag walkaway movement. And you should be able to see me live now on the camera. Let me just straighten this out a little bit. Okay. So, for those of you who have been watching my channel for a while, I do have to say to the walkaway movement, I'm very happy to see you getting on board. And it's definitely better late than never. But I've actually been talking about things like this since about 2011, 2012. And I wanted to tell a little bit of my story first. And then I want to say that I see people are getting on the right track, but they're still only halfway there. So, for those of you who may be new to my channel, and what's the walkaway movement? That's a good question. Basically, what's happening is a lot of people that consider themselves liberals and people on the left are really starting to do some very good things. Instead of just having the media and have other people tell them how to think, people started researching things, and they started learning that their party is not really providing them with what they once thought the party was all about. And people are starting to move away from the extreme left. Now, the answer isn't to go to the extreme right. But let me get into the story first of my walk away, even though I walked away before it became fashionable. The fake news thing, I've been talking about that since, 2011, 2012, again, before it became in fashion. But better late than never, so I'm never going to be upset with people starting to wake up, because that's always a good thing. And I've said for years, do your own research. Do not base everything on what other people tell you. Because a lot of times, when people are trying to push an agenda, it's usually for their own personal gain. But for those of you who may not know who I am, I've had this channel originally since 2010. I shut the original channel down, came back at the end of 2011. I've been here ever since. Before that time, before 2011, I was your typical New York Democrat. I watched MSNBC like it was a religion. Used to watch the Rachel Maddow show, Chris Matthews, all of them. I remember when Obama came into office. And peace, allow me to be able to speak what I'm talking about, and you'll get to see where I'm going. There is a purpose behind this, so be patient. Because it goes, that's why if you see in the title of this video, it says, hashtag walk away, getting there but still far away. So I ask you to be patient. There's always a method to my madness. So I'm just giving a background, especially for people just getting into this movement. Because we remember, these are people who are just starting to see the light. And like any kind of situation, you got to think of it like a death. There are stages you have to go through. And trust me, I've been through them all. You go through the denial. You go through the anger. You go through all of the emotions until you finally come to acceptance. And that's why it took me from 2011, from being a certain place, to where I am now. So please bear with me. So, in 2008 when Obama became president, which, by the way, I think 2008 was our peak of our chance for true unity, because there were plenty of people, including myself, who thought having an African-American president was something we'd never see in our lifetime. I remember crying, like many people did, when Obama became president. I thought, well, here we are. We're finally getting to that place where we can come together. We finally got to the point where we have an African-American president. I thought it was a beautiful thing. Again, I watched MSNBC, loved the left, fell in 100%, was obsessed with listening to them tell me how to live. And it wasn't until around mid-2011 that I got probably one of the best wake-up calls that I ever found on the internet. And I won't mention the person's name, I'll just use the initial J. Because when I first started YouTube, I was just trying to figure out what to do. So I was doing cartoons at first, then I started showing some of my my coin collection, and then people were saying, you know, silver is manipulated. Then they started saying things like, you know, the government is manipulated. I'm like, what are you talking about? I mean, everything's going as good as I was programmed to believe at the time. And then one day I got a message from somebody when I was a lot more trusting, and people on the internet were not mean, abusive people, and you could actually trust people, and it doesn't seem like that long ago, because it really isn't. Asked for my phone number, and we talked, and dropped probably about 10 years worth of information on me in one phone call. And that was the day I started waking up. But in the beginning, like I said, with any kind of death, and when you lose a part of you, whether it's politics, religion, just who you are as yourself, you're going to go through the stages. So I was very angry at first. I was very confused. I was through denial. But you have to work on it. It's a process. Now, fast forward to today. I am definitely not the man I was even just having this YouTube channel. I've gotten to certain levels. And I see now, I'm very happy to see this movement, but they still have a way to go, because you don't want to go from one side to the other, because then it's like a tennis game. The ball is going back and forth in the court. And if you don't want to play that game, well, going from one side of the court to the other is not changing anything. It's still putting you in the game of very wealthy people that wish to use your energy, whether it's financial or spiritual or anything, for their own personal gain. So I like the fact that people are starting to do their own research. And forgive me, I have a mustache hair that's tickling my nose, so I don't have a coke habit or anything. But they're just in the beginning stages. Now, the problem is, if you look throughout history, government's jobs have always been to control the people through emotion, through fear, through control. And you'll have the good cop, bad cop. And it will always fluctuate. Because if you remember, when they freed the slaves, and I say that in quotes because if you watch some of my other videos, you'll kind of get a deeper meaning of that. But again, that's an older version of me. Remember, it was the Republicans, and the Democrats were the ones that started the KKK. But you see how things shift over time. And everybody thinks that the next leader is going to be the one that's going to save the day. Now, if that were true, and this country being a few centuries old at this point, we're going in a downward spiral. We're not going up. We're not rising. And I think, like I said, around 2008, I think we hit the peak of unity, because I've never seen more division in my life. I mean, here I am, a New Yorker. I'm a straight white male. I should technically be the enemy, according to some. And people now base so much on your race, your sexual preferences, instead of seeing us all as human beings, as living humans. So the idea is, if you're going to walk away, well, walking halfway is better, but not best. And until we realize, because you need realize to realize, that the whole system is corrupt, and you move towards your own individual enlightenment and spiritualism, and learn about your inner self, and learn to let go of anger. And trust me, I learned the hard way today. Today was a really bad day for me. It just spiraled. And that can happen sometimes. But when bad things happen, if you can turn it into something good, then I can't really see it as bad. So as bad as my day was today, if it inspired me to make this video and it helps somebody else maybe rethink their progression or the way they're going, then I can't see it as bad. So my point is, people are starting to wake up, and that's a good thing, and we must praise these people, even though they're not going to be where certain people are. I mean, a master's in mathematician, in math, that's maybe 8 years into college, shouldn't be putting down a person that just got into first grade, because they're at different levels. So when it comes to waking up, it's a lot better than being asleep, but we have to help them along. And as long as we continue to play this two-party system, we are forever going to be in control, out of control. Because just look at decade after decade. We've gone from Democrat to Republican, from Republican to Democrat. Each time the other one views the other side as the enemy. And yet, are they really there to help you, the individual? Do they really care about you? So we give all of our energy to others instead of ourselves. And a true walkaway movement, a true hashtag walkaway, should be from the entire corrupt system that needs to be restarted. Now, I don't have all the answers, and I don't know what that new start would be. But to cling on to the old ways, and that's what these systems are, because if they were beneficial, they wouldn't be breaking down. They wouldn't be dividing everybody. There is so much hatred in this world now. There's so much PC culture, where everybody gets offended by everything that somebody says. Our leaders, and I keep putting that in quotes, they will always say the right things. Because make no mistake, even if Trump does everything he promises, eventually that side is going to end up being seen as the bad guy. I mean, look how hard they're trying to do that. And then people will eventually shift to the other side, and it will continue the game of back and forth. This country has been here now for a couple of centuries. Are we getting more unified? Are we becoming wealthier, healthier, stronger, less fear, less control? Or is it the opposite? And it doesn't matter who's president of a corporation. And if you don't know what that means, I highly suggest it. But again, this is older stuff for me. I am so past the political government stuff. But, like I said, there are people just waking up. So they're just experiencing the beginnings of learning to start to think for themselves. So you cannot, not everybody like me can handle a phone call of truth bombs going from a Obama-loving Democrat, MSNBC watching asleep person as I was, to all of a sudden getting all this information and being able to handle it. And I couldn't understand it back then because it wasn't about understanding, it's about understanding. Know thyself. So we need to help these people to not make the mistake of, okay, I see one side of a party that no longer agrees with me, so I'm going to leave it and walk away. And then they are led astray to go to the other side, which is going to use you as well. Because, make no mistakes, there are villains on all sides of any controlling government throughout history. You just have to look, because if governments throughout history were there to do their job, they've had centuries of time to perfect it. And all you have to say, and I tell people to think logically, get emotion out of it, get your feelings out of it, go with just plain facts. In the century upon century of kings, presidents, dictators, any ruling class, have any of them reached utopian status anywhere in the world at any point in the world? You would think, if they really cared as much as they say they do, and all right, let's see if we get back on. YouTube is right at it. Okay, so it seems I'm back. The funny part is I have another YouTube channel. It's called We Love Comics. What happens here never happens. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. But what I was saying is, before I was rudely interrupted, because YouTube, even though I have 42,000 subscribers, only 15 people are watching right now. They hide this stuff because that means I'm on the right track. But again, they don't want people to think for themselves. They want you to leave one side to go to the other side. You know, it's that illusion of choice. It's like me holding up both my fists and saying, pick the one that punches you in the face. Now, you can choose that, but neither one is going to be good. So like I said, I don't know how much you heard before my feed got cut off, coincidentally. Please name me any government or ruling class throughout history, of recorded history, that has brought us to a utopia, who has a country that is doing perfect in every way. There's no crime. There's no poverty. There's no division. So why do we keep confiding in these people? Why do you need to be led? Because all you're being led is led astray. I have been trying to tell people this since 2011. And I'm happy that people are starting to wake up. But you cannot be truly awake if you just go from one problem area and go to the next. It's the drowning in good intention. And trust me, there is a reason why the controlling classes throughout history have always been wealthy, while the people that they claim to want to help are always kept down financially, always afraid. Because let me ask any of you out there, whether you're black or white, gay or straight, Republican or Democrat, come from Iran, you come from Canada, come from the United States of America, they're all corporations. But when was the last time you wanted to have a war with somebody? Now, you'll have internet trolls and you'll have people you may want to fight. That happens. It's part of life. But how many of you really want to take a gun and shoot somebody? Or have a nuclear weapon destroy people that you've never met before? Now, I'm going to speak directly to anybody that lives in the United States of America Corporation. How many of you have had somebody from Russia come and want to hurt you? How about Iran? How about North Korea? You're told to be enemies with people you've never met before. When was the last time you had a problem with any of them? But it's the same thing of people influencing you to take advantage because they'll give you what they call free stuff. Because if you think about things from an emotional or a selfish or even a greedy aspect, let's pick something like the minimum wage. Now, the political parties will tell you that raising the minimum wage is a great thing. And for somebody that makes minimum wage, you'd think that's a great idea. But they never tell you from the other side of the coin, the business end of the coin. If you were a business, let's say you owned a fast food restaurant, and you have 5,000 chains all across the country. And let's say you're paying them all the minimum wage of $7 an hour. Now all of a sudden you have to pay them $15 an hour. So you're paying thousands upon thousands of people double their salary to do the same exact job. No improvement whatsoever. Now, do you think, as a business owner, you would be able to maintain your employees without letting people go? Because now your profits have cut in half. You're going to let people go, which means the people that still have their job are going to work twice as hard, which means they doubled their salary, but now they're doubling their work. Or companies go out of business and go overseas, which we saw a lot of in the past couple of years. But you tell people you get free stuff, they don't understand or understand the consequences. Nothing is free, but it sounds good. So, if you truly are ready to walk away, you need to see the bigger picture, and it does take time. And you have to, like Yoda once said, you have to unlearn what you have learned. Or shall we say, you must unprogram what you've been programmed. Because the majority of things that you know have been because others have told you about it. Tell a lie long enough, it becomes the truth. The whole idea is, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, whether you're a communist or a socialist, whether you're in North Korea or somewhere in Texas, the idea is to get you to fight amongst yourselves so you never see your own true freedom, and you applaud the very people who took the shackles off you physically but kept you in control, giving you two choices and two choices alone. Now, fear is an easy way to control people. But fear is a learned expression, and it is a choice. I've lost my fear a long time ago. Doesn't mean things won't scare me every now and then, but I don't let it overwhelm me. You have to retrain your thought process, because I promise you, and I hope no one ever tries this, but if you were to take a baby and you put it in a pool of tarantulas, please nobody do that, that baby will not be scared. That baby would probably see them as cushiony little toys to play with. We are taught fear. Why do you think in school they go through all the history of war? Because it gets you to hate people that you've never met, that you've never had a problem with. So you can justify very wealthy people playing the game of human chess. Because no president, no dictator, no leader of any country, when there is a war, fight it themselves. They send the pawns, the chess pieces, to do the work for them as they sit back and collect the money. They borrow from banks, which give to both sides. The idea is you have to think of this as a game of tennis. If you want to get out of the game, you have to get off the court. You can't just keep going from one side or the other. So if people truly want to walk away, don't let yourself be woken up to the point where you finally see one side is bad, only to go to the other side. If you're going to do a marathon, you get more achievement by finishing the race than only going halfway. Again, drowning in good intention. Because America is supposed to be the most democratic, freest country in the world. I challenge any of you who live in this country to take all of your possessions and try and leave the country without your papers. See how fast they stop you. See how fast they question you. See how fast they confiscate what you believe to be yours. If this was truly a free society, wouldn't you be able to roam wherever you please? If you wanted to leave this country, take all of your possessions and just walk away? But yet, they'll stop you at the border, won't they? They may even confiscate. They may even put you in jail. Or take a little bit of your possessions and maybe call it a fee or a surcharge or a tax or a fine. Just nice words for theft. And we thank them for this privilege. Who wouldn't want to be a politician throughout history? Yeah, a few of them get beheaded every now and then because there is no honor amongst thieves. You steal from the wrong person, eventually somebody does something. It's a price to pay. But if I could teach anybody in this walkaway movement is to walk completely away. If you live in fear, if you live like how I started back in 2012, I was all about, oh, got to get the water, got to get all that gold and silver, you got to get all the food, you got to protect yourself for that coming collapse that we're still waiting for. And I was fooled by some of the people that I thought were there to try and help me and lift me up and protect me for my own good. And these were the people like the Peter Schiffs and the Mike Maloneys who sold you the very thing that they said that you needed. And we fall for it. Now, I don't regret it, but I no longer live in that fear because fear is a way to keep you controlled. And governments throughout history love to control the people through fear and through poverty. Why do you think, especially in this country, I can only pretty much talk about this country because this is where I live, why do you think so many people are on welfare? Do you think the government, which by the way, it's not the president that makes all the laws. If you know anything about this country, you know you have to have 2/3 majority in the Senate. 2/3 of the majority vote in the House of Representatives. Not in that order. It starts out with the House of Representatives and then it goes to the Senate, each needing 2/3 of a majority of the vote before it even gets to the president. People seem to forget that. The news is always pointing out whether it's Obama with Fox News or it's CNN with Trump. They're always blaming the president and seem to forget how our government system works. As corrupt as it can be when you dig down deep. The news will make you think I'm the enemy. I mean, like I said, I'm a heterosexual white male. I live in New York. But yet, I don't hate anybody based on the color of their skin or who they decide to share their bed with. But at the same time, I don't have to agree with it either. But I don't fear it. And I don't think somebody is out to take away from me. Except the people that are supposedly out for our best interest to protect us. It comes at a cost. And we keep giving it to them. We volunteer our servitude. Learn what that means. So if we ever want real unity, if we want to ever get to that utopia, we have to get rid of an old system that doesn't work. Voting for the next leader to control what you can do, what you can say, where you can or cannot go, is not freedom. Like I said, choose which hand you want me to punch you in the face with. Just because you can make a choice doesn't mean that's not the only choice. Because what do they teach you about politics in America? Well, you have Democrats and you have Republicans. If this was truly a free society, wouldn't you have more than two choices? Why is it only those two all the time? I mean, there's more people that you can vote for Miss America than you can for the presidency. You ever see a poor president? They're all wealthy for a reason. And they're not inspiring you to become wealthy. And like I said before, why do you think they want people on food stamps and government assistance? Sounds good, but it's there to keep you poor. Because you'll always be given just enough to survive. And if you want to continue to get those things that you grow accustomed to, you have to keep voting those people in office, which means you keep their job, which means they keep making plenty of money while you're suffering. So they go on the TV and they stand in front of those microphones and tell you how much they care about you. And they're living in their mansions and driving around in their private jets and limousines. Well, they don't live anywhere near where you live. And they say they understand the people. They understand people, but they understand how to manipulate them. And one of the things I always used to say is, you know, you can only get walked on if you lay down and let somebody walk all over you. It is always a choice. So again, a lot of this I've been past for years. But I want to speak to people who are just hearing about this, or maybe never heard of this walkaway movement. It starts building up interest. And it creates a dialogue. Because that's the only way we are ever going to get true unity, is if we could see past the colors, and we could see past the countries, and we could see past your preferences in whatever it is, and only see human-to-human interaction, where we can learn from each other's perspectives. Because if this world was everybody doing the same thing in the same way, it would be one heck of a boring place. True diversity will never work if there are certain people putting down other people. You cannot lift yourself up by putting other people down. Because if that's what you think it takes to make your side win, there is no unity. And there is only division, and you are being used. And that's your fault. Because nobody can use a person that thinks for themselves, who is reliable for themselves, who can see what's going on. Nobody forces you to do anything. We all do it because maybe it's more convenient to look the other way and allow bad things to happen to those of us who may not have that situation happen. But eventually it comes to you. And we're starting to see that now. It's not a coincidence now that in the world there are more people with obesity, which is unhealthy, more people with emotional and psychological and physical problems, who are poor, who are depressed, who are scared. Where do you think that comes from? You think that comes from inside you, or do you think it's outside influence that we allow? You know, if two people are walking down the street and one of them says to the other one, I'm going to go rob that elderly person there, and the friend goes along with it but doesn't commit the crime, just stands there and watches the other person commit the crime. If they both get arrested, guess what? That person may not have actually initiated, but because they didn't try and stop it and they were complicit with it, they are just as guilty. People have been taught, oh, it's not your fault. All right, let's see if it comes back on again. Cattle cannot think the way that we do. That's why they're easily led. But that's also why they want group thought, because individual thought is dangerous to somebody who's trying to control. That is why, if you've ever learned CPR, and me being a licensed massage therapist, I had to learn CPR. One of the things that they tell you, technical difficulties, my left foot. One of the things they tell you, if there's a situation, let's say, God forbid somebody passes out and there's a crowd, and you're the person giving that person mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. You don't want to scream out, someone call 911. because everybody around who is probably filming at this point with their cameras, because that seems to be more important, getting that YouTube video than actually saving a life, but they'll all be sitting around waiting for somebody else to do it. They'll be looking around. What you're actually trained to do is look somebody in the eyes, point to one specific person, say, you, go call 911. Go get an ambulance. It's easier to control a herd. Why do you think you get all your information from school, where they bunch you all together? Why do you think they put all this information on the television? I'm glad that people are starting to walk away. I'm glad people are starting to see what's going on. But walk away from it all. If you complain about a corrupt banking system and you have a banking account, you're part of the problem. I got rid of my bank account years ago. I have a federal credit union, which is different from a bank. If you don't know the difference, I highly recommend that you research it. And the only credit card I have is a federal credit bank card that I can only use if I have money in my account. There's no credit line. There's no debt. Credit cards are convenient. They make things easy. But they also keep the power in control. They keep you in debt. Gives them the ability to take away your stuff that you worked for. Taxes are a nice word for theft. You do all the work, and they just take a piece of it. And they can say it's building roads and building bridges. I could pretty much promise anybody that's watching this, somewhere in their town, they could point out several roads that probably haven't been fixed in a very long time. But on the left and the right, they'll cheer for you. They'll pray for you. They'll tell you everything that you want to hear. And we'll keep waving our flags, and we'll keep, when they're ready to have another war and another conflict, they're ready to send your brothers and sisters, your friends and family, to go kill and die for their personal profit. Or we can walk away from that and see ourselves as higher beings, more capable than just war and greed. Very easy to be greedy and selfish. Like they say, it's easier to destroy than to create. So it takes sacrifice. It takes effort. How many people are willing to walk away from those things? I mean, anybody, I'm sorry, but anybody can make a hashtag walk away YouTube video and talk about how they're walking away, but then do nothing else. What are you really walking away from? If you're going to do it right, because you will never get to a higher level if you want to continually stay grounded. You could never learn to fly if you never take that first step. There's a reason why in nature, after a certain time of whatever animal has been born, the parents walk away. Not because they don't love them or care about them. It's because if the mother nurtures their babies for their whole lives and they become dependent on the mother, well, if anything ever happens to the mother, those babies die. So just imagine baby birds in the nest, and the mother doesn't teach them how to fly or motivate them to fly or push them out to be able to fly. Because, oh, it's nicer to just keep yourself in that nest so mommy will feed you. Well, what happens if one day mommy goes out to feed you and never comes back? You never learned to fly. What do you think will happen to you? Why do you think they want you in your nest, going to school, watching TV, playing video games? One of the reasons why I'm lucky that one of the things I have hobbies is comic book collecting, because if I ever needed to sell them, I could have a profit and be able to get some of the money I spent back to be able to pay for a problem. I want people to get to a much higher place. It doesn't mean everything's wonderful, because like I said, I had a really bad day today. But if anything, it inspired me to do this video. And I hope it helps somebody. Even if it's one person. And like I said, 42,000 people, I'm up to 18 people watching. My comic book channel that has about 3,000, I usually have about 40 to 50 people watching. It is what it is. We're headed in the right direction. And that's promising. But we need to go a different way. You know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Well, I think that century upon century of governments, whether they are communist, socialist, fascist, democratic, what have you, centuries of them in control, and it not bringing us any closer to a utopia. As a matter of fact, it's doing quite the opposite these days. I think we've given them enough time to call BS. If you want them to stay rich while you stay poor, and maybe just get enough money so you could look the other way, if you have no problem with your fellow men and women of this planet suffering just because you're doing better or you're being left alone, you better hope to God it never comes to you or whoever you pray or believe in. Lose the fear, gain the love, open the mind and the heart and the soul. Start thinking for yourself. Start providing for yourself. The more you are dependent on somebody else, the more you want to hope and pray they are going to be doing the right thing. And like I said, nobody ever can point out, I've been saying this for years, name one country and one politician that's done everything they said that they're going to do and created a utopia for their people. And yet we keep putting our faith in these people, going from one extreme to the other, one side to the other. That's insane. So that's all I want to talk about. It's 3:30 in the morning. It's getting a little late. Not many people watching. I do appreciate those that are here, that maybe will watch this, the 300 or 400 people of my 42,000 who will ever even get the message. If you want to share it, that's great. Most people say they can't even do that. YouTube is part of the problem. But it doesn't matter what's going on if you fend for yourself and you lose the fear and you start thinking on your own. Don't let other people influence you, including myself. Think for yourself. Listen to all sides. Formulate your own opinions. Reach a higher level, and one day you will be happier than you can imagine, even when days go bad. So thanks for listening. I always appreciate it. It was nice to be able to do a live show for the first time in 3 months because YouTube tried their hardest to silence me. Thank you for those that took the time to comment, and I'll see you next time. I hope you have a great night, and keep walking away. And don't look back. Peace.